Joining me now, Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison. Mr. Chairman, let's get right into the debate. It was a rough night for President Biden, but a deeply dishonest one for Trump. The president spoke about his performance at a rally in North Carolina Friday. Take a listen.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. Folks, I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Because quite frankly, the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high.
You've heard the chatter, Mr. Chairman. The New York Times editorial board has called for Biden to leave the race. As we mentioned, the campaign and the party held a call to check in just hours ago. What can you tell us about what was said?
Well, Rev, I think the media is making the call out to be a lot more than what it was. It's a regularly scheduled call that we have with our party leaders to just update them on the state of the race, our path to victory. We talked about the convention that's coming up in Chicago and preparations for that. And I broke some news on the call, Rev. I told them that my kids made me promise to take them on a Disney cruise. So that's about all that came out of that call. But in all seriousness, going back to what the president said, he said he doesn't debate as well as he used to, but when he gets knocked down, he gets back up. And that's the real important part of understanding this. Rev, since that debate and Joe Biden calling out the lies from the 34-count convicted felon who is also liable of sexual assault in terms of Donald Trump, our grassroots supporters have helped us raise $27 million. And you and I both know, because we both run for office, that people don't give up. These are small dollar donors. Grandmas, grandpas, aunts, and uncles, they don't give up their hard-earned money if they don't believe that you have a pathway to victory and that they need you to be strong. And that's what we have seen post this debate. I've even seen some polls that show that Joe Biden got a little bounce coming off of the debate because they saw Donald Trump for who he is, a liar. Someone who has lied about every single thing on that debate stage. He lied about the pandemic because he botched that. He lied about what the disaster. He lied about what he did for veterans because he was a disaster for our veterans.
No, there's no doubt he lied about many things, and I've certainly been talking about that, and I'm going to talk about it tonight. But let me ask you, frankly, from not only the call, but from you as chairman talking around, has any of your field people and any of your people around the states told you that they feel or that they're hearing that people want President Biden to step aside? I referred to the New York Times editorial. Are you hearing anything from your people on the field, or are they hearing from constituents that Mr. Biden, the president of the United States, ought to consider stepping aside?
You hear the hand-wringing coming from pundits, Rev, and from op-eds like the New York Times, but you don't hear it from the people. What I've seen is a galvanization, particularly in the black community. Yeah, I'm a black man. I've seen a galvanization of support for Joe Biden because, you know, Rev, in the black community, in your family, you can say all that you want to say about a member of your family, but don't let somebody else say it, because that's when you unify people in support. And that's what I've seen in terms of support of Joe Biden, because folks understand this, that Joe Biden has always had our back, and we're going to have his. So we're still riding with Biden. And folks, if you are, go to joebiden.com, make a contribution. Let's give them something really to talk about. Because right now, the people are galvanizing and they're supporting Biden because they understand that it's Joe Biden that is the brick wall that is standing up, securing our freedoms in this country from a wannabe dictator in terms of Donald Trump.
Now, speaking of black issues, former President Trump tried to claim immigrants take black jobs. I'm not sure what jobs are specifically black, nor have I seen research showing immigrants are taking large amounts of jobs that would go to American citizens of any race. What I do know is black unemployment fell to an all-time low under President Biden. What should black voters take away from the debate, especially being referred to as black jobs?
Yeah. Well, they see Donald Trump for who they are. And many of us went online to say, and right now I'm doing my black job, a black job I actually inherited from a Latino in terms of Tom Perez, because he was a chair before me. It's just nonsense that Donald Trump puts black folks and Latinos and Asian Americans in these little boxes that we're only defined to do and be certain things in his world. But Joe Biden understands that we, all of us, should be able to live the American dream. That's why I'm happy to serve under a president that has appointed more people of color to the judiciary than any president before him. 65% of the people that Joe Biden appointed as judges, lifetime appointments, have been people of color. Almost 30% of the folks that he's appointed have been black. He's appointed more black women to the appellate court than all presidents combined. He appointed the first black woman as vice president, the first black woman on the United States Supreme Court. He has overseen the lowest unemployment for black folks in the history of this nation. He cut our student loan debt and waived that $157 billion for almost 4 million people. So we have made a lot of progress under Joe Biden, and it's not just his words, it's his actions. Donald Trump can't say that.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.